Hey, and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to be continuing with our little advert project. So on our previous ones we did some really rough blocking. We tried to get the proportions as close as we can, and now we're going to start going through each part and doing the actual modeling process. So we'll probably refine some of the proportions as we go along, but in this one we're going to start with the head. So I hope you've been enjoying these tutorials, and I hope you look forward to the rest of them. I am doing these as I go along, so I haven't prepared any of this, so it's kind of like, this is the first time I'm doing it as well, so I'm going to make mistakes and stuff like that, and I might just pause sometimes. But anyway, yeah, none of this is prepared, so I'm just doing it as I go along. So yeah, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, and yeah, let's get going with some of the modeling. Okay, cool. So I've just opened up my last file, and we pretty much got through all of the blocking. It's not 100% perfect, but it gives us a good idea of proportions. So in this one, we will start with the head, and we'll just try and make the head as much as possible. And you'll notice here I have actually sorted out my PureRef sort of screen, so I can have a look at some of my references I do it without having to open up images and stuff. So I have added some extra images as well, and these are just some clips from the advert. It was mostly to sort of figure out what the arms were doing, because we can see pretty much everything that's going on with most of the body, but some of these arms was just unsure, and I was kind of certain that these sort of rotated as big spheres, and you can see here that they do. And if I just open up this, we can actually see we can actually see, if we look at the shoulder, actually how it's working. So these actually do extend. You can see it sort of flip around here as well. It's quite hard. It's quite quick. It almost flips very quickly, rotates, but you can just about see it there. And these sort of arms also extend a little bit. So they're kind of a little bit like hydraulic. Okay, it's hard to tell if they're hydraulic or sort of stretching, but we're going to assume it's like hydraulic movement, because you can sort of see it a bit more. You can see it a bit more on if you look on the wrists, how they sort of stretch. And I know we're doing the head, but I just wanted to mention it now that I'll add these in. You can see it sort of stretches there. So see how it stretches. So there's just other things we've got to keep in mind as well. And I guess one other sort of detail that I noticed is actually got his name on his foot. Bubble or Bubble, so B-U-B-L. So we'll add that on as well. So anyway, what's going on? So we're going to go on and do this head, and I've added some extra sort of refs so we can see. It's not an overly complicated head. We've got some indentation parts here. It's hard to tell what it is, but it looks like there's some sort of cylinder catch there, and it's fairly basic. So yeah, so without going on and on, we'll start doing the head. So what I'll do, I'll just minimize this, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to group these and name them. Let's just tidy it up, just so we can keep it all together. Because once it's all done, we shouldn't have to worry too much about all this. We can just delete it. It just means it's a little bit more organized for us. Cool. Now just call that head. So let's just hide all this. And we've got our head here. So I don't want to change any of this. This is just going to be my... you can duplicate this and just continue from this. But I kind of like just to keep my ref as my ref and not really touch it. Because I know this is sort of the correct proportions. So it's always something that I don't really say you're happy with it and you're done. You don't want to keep changing stuff. You want to use as your point of reference. So I'm just going to add this into a layer, and I'm just going to call it head ref, because you could be going backwards and forwards quite a lot once it's been, say, because obviously like we're treating this like a project, like a freelance project, and if they've said that's all, if it's all been signed off on the scale and the proportions, you don't really want to change that anymore. Cool. So let's have a look at this. So we've got it's a pretty basic shape. It's like almost what we have here, but we've got this sort of overlapping lip part here, and it sort of goes around and rounds off at the top. Oh, let's not drag that. It's not very clear in these because you don't see it very close up. You can sort of see we've got this sort of loop around here. It's hard to tell if this top bit spins, but we know this spins up here, so we can assume that's just one piece. So what we probably can do is just get the simplest thing done and out of the way. And it's just a little loop. So that should be fairly simple. We're just going to exactly do the same here. Just going to create a torus. Just going to go 90 degrees round. And we're just going to match it. And you can use the scale or the polytorus. It's probably actually better to use the polytorus tools, because then they kind of work better. Because obviously you've scaled it now, and these will work relative to the actual unit size you're using in Maya. So even I'm pretty sure we haven't even changed this, so we could probably grab the values here. 8.257. We could just copy. You just right click and copy it if you want. Cool. So that's that. The reason why I didn't duplicate this, because like I say, I want to keep it. And I know you can just duplicate it, and but once say like we duplicate that, you lose the polytorus values on it. So then you can't really change much of the subdivision on it. So we don't want to like make this super high poly, because we don't really need to, but we need to make it high poly enough that it's not noticeable, and it gives us enough detail that we can add this bit on in the bottom. So I have to press 3. You see it's nice and smoothed, but we don't really want to because we're going to do this in Substance Painter, and it's quite lightweight, so we can afford to be a bit more with our subdivisions. And I'm making sure that I'm matching, because this is all at the origin. I know when I create something, it's going to come in the middle, and I want to join this properly. So I can see that I've made sure that there's a point here, a line. And we need to sort of make sure that there's a line here as well. So we can add. So we've got a line that goes right down the middle, and one goes through the middle of here. So I'm just going to make another cylinder. And I'm actually going to hide my reference, because now all I want to do is actually just attach this to here. So I'm going to reduce my poly subdivision axis down until it's sort of, I can get the correct edge placement. See, it's a little bit too big, so I can just scale it down. We actually want to check the size of this here as well, because I can see that it actually goes quite a lot under. It's a lot thinner. So let's why is that not in the origin? Just going to bring this down. I'm just going to kind of figure out a decent size for it. So I know we've done, I don't think we actually did, I think we just pulled a cylinder down and didn't really look too much into it, but now we can sort of see, looking at this size, if we then brought this down, let's bring back our reference. Let's just hide that. And hide that. Because it does look, because even though we've got our proportions mostly for the body, we still got to tweak a few little things. I still think that's a little bit too big. Because it looks quite thin. So I don't know why I shaded off. I think that's looking about right. Because we know this is correct. We just haven't done this bit. Might have just missed it. But so let's add this to there now. So there are lots of ways you can do this. You could probably Boolean it. You can, because we're on a smoothed edge here, we could either add more subdivisions so that subdivisions come up here and match nicely. I think what I am going to do for this one, I'm going to scale this down so it meets nicely in the middle here. And we can see where we're going to put our edge loops around for the rest of this. So we've got an edge loop that can, because if you plan your sort of the amount of polys in your models, it's easier for you to sort of figure out where you can do things instead of adding them afterwards. And then you keep the sort of roundness of things. So I can see that I'm going to need to add 2 edge loops here. Or I could reduce this down and only have to add 1 edge loop, because we're going to still smooth this. So it's kind of, we've already got this one. We have to worry about that edge loop because that's going to join up to there, and the same with this. So to keep it simpler, what we can do is just maybe even see if we can get 12, 13, 14. So we could almost cheat that a bit there. It's a bit off here. We might misshape in it. Like I said, we probably could just leave it as it is, but let's try and get it all one piece of geo. I'm sure it won't make a huge amount of difference if we do try and attach it or not, but ooh, not that. So you even want that, which would probably work out all right if we added. Let's just leave it as it is. Let's undo that. Cool. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this. Just hide it. Then select this torus and the cylinder. Then I'm just going to go to mesh, Boolean, and difference. And that kind of does what Boolean does, where it takes it apart, but we've kind of made sure we're kind of close within the edges. So I'm actually just going to delete all this stuff in here. Don't need any of that. And there are loads of other ways you can do this, I guess, but for the sake of just keeping this sort of clean and tidy, we'll see how it looks afterwards. So now we've got a nice fit there, but we need to obviously join this. So sorry if this is taking much longer than I thought it would. We're already on 15 minutes and we've not even really done anything. Just trying to be thorough. Like I say, none of these are not quick tutorials. They're more to try and help you sort of think of it more of a course than anything else. Cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to actually just snap these to those points. So I know they're going to line up because that's where they came from, basically. Snap that to there. And I'm just holding V to snap. Ooh. Cool. So we've got that all sort of joined up, but now we've kind of got this mess here. The thing with Booleans, they're not always clean. What we'll do is target world. Well, I think we can. I don't think we can actually. I think we actually have to. If I hold V, if I snap that to there, and obviously there's still vertices there, but we have to select them. Mesh. Oh no, edit mesh and merge to center. You can just select them all, and I guess merge to, because we've already snapped that point there. We can merge to center, but then we would have to re-snap it back. Cool. So we've made it sort of tidy, but we've obviously got this edge loop problem now. So what we want to do is we kind of add probably another edge loop around here, or it'd probably be more complicated to bring it round all the way around, but we'll see how it looks. If we add another loop here, we're likely going to add a ridge. So just looking at it with the best way to get this through. So what we'll do is actually just select these two and merge them, mesh combine. First thing, we just select all those vertices and we can edit mesh and merge. And because they're on top, they would have merged. So if you press 3, you can see it's kind of doing this. But we've got some bad geo here, which we need to sort of fix. So we need to make a proper edge loop here. So we can either the likelihood of this creating a ridge in the loop is quite likely, but we can try and see if it doesn't. It might just be subtle enough that it doesn't, but it probably will cause a slight ridge. Obviously, there are probably other ways that you can do this as well. Cool. So the reason why it will cause a ridge is because you see that this is kind of all sort of nicely curved around. We stop the curve here by adding an edge loop. So effectively, we'd want to select that. If we go to our orthographic top, we can see what we sort of created here. And so if we press 3 now, you can see it's very slightly that it's created a hard edge, which we don't want. And yeah, there are other ways you can get around this, but the simplest way to do this is to use either geo as a reference. So I'm just going to hide my reference. I'm just going to make a sphere. I'm going to scale this down, and it might actually be easier if I go into X-ray or even wireframe. Cool, and it might not make sense what I'm doing right now, but what I want to do is just going to reduce this down. Because we've made this from basically a torus, we could effectively match this sizing. Cool. I'm only using this for reference, so you can see that we've got our matching edge here. So if I just pull this out of the way, you can see that this is our torus, but we've got these extra edge loops in. So this is just a little, it's a really manual way. There's probably other tips and tricks that you can do this to get rid of this. But what I'll now do is just actually double this. So now when this smooths out, so if I press 3 on that, scale this down, let's go back to I'm just going to select that edge apart from these ones down here. If I hold shift and right click, you'll have transform component, and it's quite hard to see, but if I select it in this axis, this is actually going to, so instead of scaling it out, transform component will push it out on its sort of, I guess on its normal, but it will keep it uniform. And I'm just going to do the same for this one. I think I deselected that at the top as well, which is, so I'm going to go into my perspective and select all my edges properly. This is probably what happens if you don't prepare your tutorials, you just wing them. Like so, it's it'll be right. Top. Now we'll just go to our wireframe. I think we're still in transform components, so if you don't have to bring it out far. All we're doing is matching this. So now if we press 3, we can see that it continuously the curve. Cool. Well, this might be an overcomplicated way of doing it, but it's a good way to, if you come into these sort of situations, you can fix them. So we'll just shift right click and transform component again. And you only need to move it a tiny bit until it's matching the sphere. Can tear off a copy if it's a bit far away. We'll just type in the values. Ooh. It's quite, you can see how it's really small values doing it. Cool, 0.35. And I'm sure that's probably a 0.35 because that's the math between that sort of, that angle and the space between it. But yeah. So I'm just going to go back to my smooth shade all, a perspective. I do need to bring this one down as well, and we'll just bring these all down together. Press Q to hide your manipulator. Cool. So if I press 3, you can see that this is obviously not right, but if we turn our wireframe on shaded, we can see that we've got no. The best way to see if you've got funky geometry is add a new material. Usually when I'm doing this anyway, I'll add a blin or a fong. So now you can see, we can get rid of that reference sphere now. That if there's any sort of kinks in it, and we can see that it's all nice and round, we've just got this sort of nasty bit at the bottom, which is easily fixed by adding extra edge loops. So we can just go multi-cut. And you can see that that's now tightened that edge off. And you can add more in there if you want to make it tighter. So if we added another one in there, you can see we're getting now a much tighter sort of point, but I just don't want it too tight. It'll start pinching maybe. And I'm pretty happy with that. I think that'll be all right for that. And I think we're actually taking such a... I didn't realise this would probably take so long, but let's unhide our reference. And how long are we on? Oh my god, we're on 30 minutes, and we've only made a loop and added that. But it's because I'm probably talking. If I can speed through this, if you want. If you do want me to go faster and just like fast forward these, I'm pressing Control E, by the way, and press R. I'm just going to scale this in to bring this in, and Shift right click to fill hole. And obviously this is still bad. We can't leave it like this because that's multi edges, multiple vertices going into an edge. So we can just go multi-cut because we've made this a sensible sort of subdivision. We can just add a crossing, and now they're all good. So the last thing that we need to do for this part is bevel this edge. It doesn't need to be super tight because it'll probably be hidden. Now we kind of also want to add some subdivisions into here. We're not sculpting it, so it's not so bad. But it'll just mean that you'll have less texture stretch on your UVs. You can see how, because kind of imagine it like supporting edges for your UVs. But it shouldn't matter so much. You can see how it doesn't really shift now. Cool. And that surprisingly took way longer than I wanted it to do. So we've actually got some, still got some sort of pinching here. See how it's sort of, with the Fong shader, you can sort of see how it's sort of pulling it up. So you might be able to just try and reduce that by, we can work in our smooth mode, but also see our lower res wireframe. It's possible that we might be able to reduce this just by tweaking some of them. Generally, it's not a massive issue. You probably wouldn't notice it once it's been textured, but it's kind of nice to sort of keep an eye on this sort of stuff. See if that's made it any better. And it has made it a little bit better. Not a huge difference. So we'll do the same on the other side as well. Just pull these out a bit. It could be, probably could just pull them out so it's not so straight on. We don't want to do it too much because we're kind of not doing, it's not the best attachment. There are better ways to probably do it, but cool. And we can see it from quite far away, so I think that's all right. So yeah, we're pretty much done with that. I'm going to stop this tutorial for now because we're at 30 minutes and we've done this. Yeah, I'll try and do it, be a lot faster. I don't know if you don't want me to talk through it and just want to go through it as fast as possible. Please just say it in the comments below. Yeah, what I don't even know what this is called. Let's call this antenna geo. Cool, and we'll just delete all the history, freeze transformations. Cool. So if you've enjoyed, I know this has been we haven't really done much, and I've been talking a lot over small amounts of things, and we probably could do it a little bit better, but we wanted to get it done quick, and clean and sort of easy sort of way. So yeah, we'll continue with more in another tutorial, so it's not so long. So yeah, so if you've enjoyed that tutorial, don't forget to hit that like button, yeah, and subscribe for more. And thanks for watching.